this circuit and then through the First District Court of Appeal before they go catty-corner to the Florida Supreme Court. I enjoyed working at that court a lot. It also has statewide jurisdiction over workers' compensation issues. Judge Hawks is an expert on workers' compensation issues. He teaches that here at law school as well. So I enjoyed that a lot. The transition to the court, though, has been a blast. It's a lot of fun. There are 7 justices there, and we all sit together on everything. Instead of working at the first DCA, where you sit as a panel of 3, you sit as a court of 7 on everything there at the Supreme Court. And what's different is that in addition to the cases that we hear, you hear the administrative matters ruling on the judicial administration as a branch, as in addition to the cases. For example, the disciplinary actions of lawyers, the disciplinary actions of judges, all come through that court. And we have to deal with it. We are interested in trying to get budget money for the judicial branch. So the Supreme Court sits as the head of the judiciary and the third branch of government in the state of Florida. So we're involved in all that administrative side of the governance of the branch in addition to hearing the cases. So we have that additional responsibility that I did not have at the First District Court of Appeal. So I've enjoyed both, and it's been great. Thank you for that question. Yes, sir.
If people start getting violent, can the lawn care help for fighting words?
I'm not answering. Yes, sir.
Recently, when all congressmen and senators went home to DC, they had town hall meetings, and everybody knows they got some contentious, but would somebody's First Amendment rights be abridged if, like, I know some places you had to have a ticket or something to be able to get in the door to come in and speak to your senator. You may be a constituent of, I mean, you wouldn't have to violate both your right to speech and your right to address your grievances with them. And, I mean, how is that going to evolve? Are there any cases you need to look at?
Great question. Very pertinent. Very relevant. I'm not answering. Because, you know, that exact scenario could potentially arise. I mean, these town meetings are not over, right? Last time I checked, they were still going on. So, time, place, and manner restrictions, would those apply? Can you have appropriate kind of restrictions on what people can say and how they can say it? You need to have some degree of crowd control, maybe, but on the type of things that could happen at those town hall meetings, I'm not going to address because it could come up, could easily come up. Great question. Yes, sir.
How do you think, Mr. Madison, would feel about our interpretation of the Constitution today, particularly the way we deal with the First Amendment rights?
I think he would probably be as concerned as I am. I think David Madison would hope that the bloodshed by his friends and the people he joined with and the forefathers of our country would encourage us not to stand weak in times of confrontation, because they did. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
There's too many rules in judging First Amendment cases. Justice Scalia is talking about that all the time. There are a lot of rules in judging First Amendment cases. There's a type of religion. There's a Buckley standard for political
that you must apply. And then there's so many fractured opinions when you have an opinion and then you have all these separate concurrences. I felt kind of sorry for the reporter when the Bush v. Gore case was going on. Do you remember when the United States Supreme Court took place in the election case, and the U.S. Supreme Court had issued the decision, and here's a reporter coming out on the steps of the United States Supreme Court with the opinion in hand, and the world is watching. And that reporter is going to have to look at this opinion and try to figure out what the result is in about 20 seconds and tell the world what happened. I felt so sorry for that reporter because it is extremely difficult to figure out what the opinion really means because they're not different.
I would imagine for lower court judges, it is more difficult to apply to decisions because there's no strict standard.
So without the standards, they can do what they want. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, there's a lot of room for judges when the Supreme Court doesn't really have their standard. That's why maybe a reverse break where a Ninth Circuit judge is higher because there's so many ways to look at the Supreme Court precedent on the First Amendment itself.
That's true. And maybe that accounts for the high number of cases. I mean, frankly, I was astonished at the number. Say, in the Federal Circuit Court opinions, 197 opinions, the Federal Circuit's just count here so far having to do with the First Amendment. There were 30, if I remember correctly. Do you know that right? In California, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I think that's right. So there was a huge number of cases coming out of that mid-level state, and there were 56 out of just various Supreme Courts in the states. So a lot of litigation. Yes, sir.
The judges in the room, your background on the DCA before you were on the Supreme Court, in your life as judges, or justices, have you had the experience of some lawyer telling you, well, here's your opinion, here's what you meant 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and in your lifetime, within a few years, you said, well, that is what I meant, that is what I said. And we have the same, sometimes, problem with trying to figure out what our founding fathers meant, particularly when we got the Federalist paper, you don't have the real founding fathers out here about all. But that's always going to be a struggle trying to figure out what people meant at the time. In our own lifetime, judges are confronted with somebody telling them about some decision we made in 1992.
Yeah, you said it's hard to figure out something. Yeah, I will not dispute that.
We all join me in thanking Justice Paul. Again, we thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you to the FSU chapter of the Federalist Society. The James Madison Institute is Florida's only free market, nonpartisan, public policy research institute, or think tank. We'd love to answer any questions you may have. Our staff's here tonight. And again, there's plenty of materials. There's refreshments left. And thank you for joining us. We'll hope you'll come to one of our future events.